This is a fairly low-budget sci-fi movie by Rupert Wyatt, who previously made Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which I liked a lot, and The Gambler with Mark Wahlberg, which I also liked. So you know, I knew this guy could make good movies. That knowledge also told me to ignore the low ratings I've seen for this online, because especially if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, which I usually don't, I actually think it's one of the worst metrics, it would have you believe that this is a bad movie. But it's not, it's actually a very well executed little sci-fi movie, which takes place in a world where there's been an alien invasion. Humanity has decided to surrender and we're essentially cooperating with the aliens. We're basically helping them extract resources from the Earth. Additionally, some major cities have been completely walled off, like Chicago, where the movie takes place, and for the people inside, there's no escape. So of course there's always gonna be some people who aren't exactly happy with this arrangement and aren't just gonna give up, so there's essentially a small underground resistance force. And they're the focus of the story here, and the fight against tyranny basically. Now that's a lot of information to digest, and all of that is basically explained in the beginning of the movie. Mostly in text form, and yeah, it's clunky. It's not a very elegant presentation. And the whole first act of the movie, or like 20-30 minutes, felt a little dry too. And I could definitely see some people turning it off at this point. It's just not a great start. However, after that slightly awkward first chunk, the movie suddenly kicks into gear, and it turns into this really intense thriller with great editing and direction, and this thumping score that basically sets the pace. It more or less turns into a completely different movie, and I started to like it a lot. And credit where credit is due, I think a lot of that has to do with the great score by Rob Simonson, who's apparently done the score for a ton of great indie movies over the years. Movies like Tully, Gifted, Foxcatcher, The Spectacular Now, The Way Way Back, and the list goes on and on. But as I said, the editing and the way the whole thing was put together is great too. It just gets this great boost of energy out of nowhere and ramps up several notches. But not only that, the script is actually surprisingly good too. I mean, the whole concept feels pretty fresh, but it's not just that. There's a ton of little details in this that just makes the world feel believable. It has a lot of great world building that most movies of this type lack. And there's a great attention to detail too. It doesn't just ignore the little things or do things that don't make sense. It has a reason and explanation for pretty much everything. And that's really what makes this better than most movies like it. It's not lazy or sloppy. You can tell that the people making this cared. And the script is probably the main reason there's so many recognizable faces in it too, including people like John Goodman, who plays a central role, and Vera Farmiga, who has a lesser role, and a lot of other people too. But the quality of the script is probably what got them interested in it, because I doubt the paycheck was that impressive, with a budget of 25 million. And yeah, the story itself isn't that amazing, but it's solid, and above all else well structured. And there are a few clever twists and turns that I liked too. But it's also not very difficult to see that this is essentially a political allegory. I mean, the movie didn't even need aliens. It could have just been a regular dystopia, where the government is the oppressor, not the aliens. The result would have been pretty much the same. I'd even go as far as to say that the aliens were one of the weakest links in the whole thing. Especially that one sequence where they actually fight one. It's just not good. That could have been left on the cutting room floor, to be honest. And I think the whole movie worked better when the aliens stayed in the background, which is most of the movie. Another weak link is probably the dialogue, which there's not a whole lot of actually. And the characters were a little bit flimsy too, not the most fleshed out. But overall, I still thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was very well put together. And the lack of character depth and the other smaller flaws didn't really bother me at all. Because the movie just kept me engaged and kept pushing forward. It set a pace and just didn't slow down until the very end, where it did take a step back. It slows things down and wraps up all the loose ends in a pretty satisfying way. And yeah, I liked it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I was able to ignore most of the issues. Which, I mean, there's a number of them, but none of them big enough to ruin the movie as a whole. So would I recommend it? Yeah, if you like sci-fi, give it a shot. Or don't. I'm not your alien space daddy, but I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to procure some of that alien technology. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.